Welcome to the Smithy. Welcome back if this is your returning visit. If this is your first time, glad to have you. If you don't know what I'm doing here, it's basically sharing the fun of blacksmithing from a novice point of view with anybody who's willing to listen. And what I've been doing is basically Alex Steele's, I don't know if he calls it a challenge, but his recommendation to make 100 leaf keychains, key rings, I should say, leaf key rings. And that's how I start the session. And I'll try weird things along the way. For example, instead of using the recommended size of material, because I don't have it and haven't been able to restock that material, I'm using a much smaller piece of material, 1/4 inch. I think he calls for 5/8, and or 10 mil, I think is what he says, but I think that works out to 5/8. And as a result, I end up with a much more delicate piece. The material heats up real fast. It also cools off real fast. My goal is to get down to about 20 minutes in making each one of these, and then if that is achieved, I'll adjust my goal again. Right now, the last time I did it, it took me about 45 minutes. My coals are ready, and the crazy thing I'm going to try today, because these aren't expensive, and I haven't been able to make myself a hot cut tool yet. A replacement Hardy tool. I only have the Hardy tool for this anvil, which is currently working as an ad hoc camera stand. I'm going to end up getting a better camera stand soon. And so I can't really come over here and use this to cut off with. So I'm going to try something bizarre and see if I can actually use a hatchet as a top cut tool. It's probably not smart. It's probably going to mess up the edge. But the hatchet right now isn't being used for anything other than splitting wood. An example is the wood I have sitting up on top here, just drying out a bit before I put it in top of the warm coals to start turning it into charcoal. And all I've been doing with the hatchet, let me see if I can get down to a piece here that's where I need to split it anyway. There we go. All I've been doing with the hatchet up till now is just using it to split wood. And basically, easy. So it doesn't need to be terribly sharp for that. It needs to be wedge shaped. As such, to continue using this piece of metal, because the way that I, one of the improvements I need to work on is getting better with creating a piece of steel that can be used again immediately for the next key ring. This isn't it. If I switch over to the anvil focus, you'll see that that is not ready for me to create a sharp bevel for the purposes of beginning my leaf. So I'm going to cut off that mess, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to see if I can use this as a hot cut top tool, or if I mess up that blade so fast it's ridiculous. I don't know what kind of metal they use for these inexpensive hatchets. I don't even know what hardening process they go through. So there's a good chance that it just messes up that blade. But I have nothing to really lose here. Like I said, these are not expensive. They're like a Harbor Freight, Pittsburgh, hatchet. So we're going to see what happens. However, I do want to have a cutting plate. I could use the oftentimes in anvils you will see that the shelf here has been used for cutting. I really just would like to not do that. And my cutting plate that I currently have is meant to slip over this and stay in place on this anvil. And again, I am using the anvil as a poorly designed camera stand, so that's not going to work for now. So let me find a piece of scrap steel here that can suffice as, there we go, as a plate for cutting on, cutting plate. I know I have one. The question is, do I have it out here at the Smithy or do I have it over at my welding station? I'm not a welder, but okay, so what we'll do is we'll turn this one over. I know what I need to do with it, which is go that way. Actually, more like that way. Let's see if that's going to clear it. It will, especially if I'm smart and go like that. All right, planning done, execution time. This doesn't have to be very hot to be able to do this, but I'll warm it up anyway because the fire needs to be stoked. You can see we've got a nice bed of coals in there already. I can throw some more on top here in a minute. It's a cold morning here in Kent. Balmy 36 degrees. But neither of my quench buckets are frozen, so it didn't freeze overnight. So we should be good. And you can see, really nice and hot. Now the problem with this is, now that I think about it again, it's mainly the, here we go. Let's take a look at the axe and see what it did. And the answer is it didn't seem to even touch the axe, which is good. That means that that this actually will work. I'll bring you into the anvil so you can see what's happening here, though I think the cutting plate's going to get in the way. Yeah, you might be able to see that. You can see it's made a couple of, on the sides that I've struck, it's made a couple of good cuts. And does not appear to have blunted my axe. Now my axe could use a sharpening anyway, but yeah, it might have blunted it. Didn't roll anything. No, there's still an edge there. Yeah, it's probably not a good idea. But let's get this done, and then we'll do a little research on that for the future. The reason I'm doing it is simply because I'm a novice and I have various tools around that, like most novice handyman, they get used once or twice a year and otherwise sit in your shop collecting dust. And since this is actually happening more than once or twice a year, maybe the answer is stop leaving them collecting dust and put them to use in a different way. Besides, you know, some folks know exactly where to go and get a hatchet, but would they know where to go and get a hot cut tool? We do have, you know, blacksmith supply online and so forth, but you know, not everybody's got access. And while my audience is likely to be, you know, U.S. centric, you never know where worldwide somebody might be and might not have access. But they'll typically have access to hatchets, so I figured why not give it a try. That worked perfectly. Yeah, that's a good time to remind everybody that we must know what to be able to work in the smithy, you must know what the first rule of blacksmithing is, and that is that all metal is hot. Thus, the pieces of metal that just dropped on the floor, we're not going to go and pick them up barehanded. We're going to go ahead and grab tongs. It just so happens I know which of these pieces of metal are hot, but one should always treat all metal in the smithy as hot, unless you absolutely know otherwise. Quench that off. Need to start building a scrap bucket for myself. And it's quenched off. Throw it over here. In the meantime, I know that the end of this bar, the one we just cut more useful, made more useful, is the hot end is the side we just cut, and the tape side here is not hot. So, but otherwise, if you walk into a smithy, you have to assume all metal is hot, especially all metal on the floor, until you know otherwise. So, let's get this metal into the fire. Let's make it hotter. And rake the coals back over where I've got my dial-a-tweer dialed in. It's currently set to 2. So I don't have to go through too much fuel just doing this tiny piece. I'm going to go ahead and start laying this wood in here. Let it start drying out inside the forge. And it'll start turning to charcoal inside the forge. Now this wood came out of a pile I have that's been sitting, getting wet and getting muddy and dirty. So at the end of the day, I'm going to have some slag to clean out of here. But that's the part that I typically don't bother to stay on to show you guys. I start the morning cleaning out the coals and any slag that built up from the last session. And yeah, that's warm in there, but it's actually nice on my hands right now, and as long as I'm not throwing air at it, it's not coming up to burn me. But it's, you know, it's like putting your hand into an oven. You're not burning yourself in the ambient air of the oven, because air doesn't really, you know, conduct heat very well. But it's clearly conducting heat, especially when you close it up, because the food cooks. So it just doesn't conduct it well. All right, now let's get her warmed up. Just a little bit over here. I don't rack my elbow on it. Slag, for those that are new to blacksmithing, is basically any material that gets that isn't organic material that with carbon that burns, but instead typically melts. So things that can make up slag are sand, dirt, other inorganic materials, metal. If you've got a piece of metal that you kind of got too hot in the fire, it can melt in there, or it could, pop off pieces because of the temperature you got it to. Fortunately, the way the ports work on this thing, that typically isn't a problem. I have more problem with ash. I don't need the cutting plate anymore, so we can put it over here on the camera stand. Hi, Cameron. Welcome to the Smithy. Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. Not only, of course, experimenting with the tools that I have, but getting to know how to do video production, getting to know how. So the other tools are, just to give you a rundown of some of the things I've got going on here. Let me back up so you can actually see my face while I tell you this story. My pretty face. The main Smithy camera is my iPhone. I'm using something called Epoch Cam to hook it up to my Mac, which is doing the streaming. My Anvil Cam is GoPro Hero 9, I believe it is. I found that the Hero 9 has a hard time doing certain things, such as operating without a light. So now it has a light on it, but the light is such that it probably wouldn't make me look so good if I made it the primary camera for the Smithy. So instead, that's what the iPhone is doing, because the iPhone's cameras are tremendous. And then over in this corner, on my very fancy camera stand, is just a 4K webcam. None of these things are running in 4K for a variety of reasons. The first is that I do plan on taking and doing an ad hoc session during the week. Welcome to drop in if you happen to see that I'm on, where I learn how to both stream and capture each individual camera's video without the branding stuff that's on the screen. That way I can edit those videos into more of a montage video like you see oftentimes on the blacksmithing channels. But then that's where it would be nice to have 4K. But when it comes to streaming, the best I'm going to ever be able to stream out here in the boonies with my internet connection of being AT&T mobile is 1080p, and so I hope it looks good. And so each of these cameras is basically doing a 1080p capture to a single feed that's sent out to a service that can then distribute it to a bunch of different services all at the same time. Let's go ahead and throw a little more charcoal on top, because it's going to be a while before that wood is charcoal. Oof. The pixies bit me. Darn fire pixies. All right. So, just to show, it's an interesting thing to see perhaps. That color is forgeable, but it's what in my eyes is a cherry to dark, and it's going into dark reds, very quickly there. So the forging time is very limited when it's that color. So that's why I try to get it up to a bright cherry to a dark yellow before I pull it out of the fire to work on it. So we'll go ahead and get the fire pixies excited. When you see flame, that's not an indication that it's doing me any good, but it helps me know that I've gotten enough air in there to get the deep coals as hot as they can get, and start cooking the upper coals and the wood that'll turn into coal. I ended up creating the fire cam just because it's always fun to see the fire. It's also fun to see the different colors that happen in the fire. And what I'm looking for is deep down where the piece of metal is going, and that's where it's getting that color that I'm looking to pull the metal out at. Your metal will never get a brighter color than the coals that it's sitting in. There we go. There's a nice color for forging. So, first step, go ahead and put in a very tall taper. Or I should say shallow taper. There we go. And there we have it. All I need is that little bit of taper there. Come out to a point. Clean it up because I ended up bending it over the edge. Nothing exciting. I'll bring you into the anvil focus so you can see it better. But you can see I've got a two-directional taper. A taper going off that way, flat this way, and then a taper going off that way and flat this way. And then what I'm going to end up doing is bringing it over the edge here, and I'm going to actually do it over on this end and giving a few whacks to set it down on the two tapered sides. So there we go. Something is messing around. Bruce, how did you must have gone in there at some point when I had the door open. Silly dog. Good boy. So how you doing, Cameron? Anything interesting going on that you want to share with the world? New books, upcoming books, student teacher events. Plenty hot. We'll come over here and we will set that down, set that down. That's probably way more than I needed to set it down, but there we have it. What you'll see there is it's now got a bit of a diamond shape to it. And when we go to flatten it, it'll end up having that diamond shape will end up being a leaf shape. So we'll come in here. We'll do the next step, which is to start making a stem. Some of these coals back so I'm not pushing them off of the air source. Hey bro, you finally joined me on the Twitch. I think you might be, except for my buddy who just made sure that it worked there, you might be my first, Twitch viewer. So welcome. Yeah, they really will let anybody stream on Twitch, especially. But now I'm on Twitch. Of course, I was on Facebook, YouTube, and I just made it so that I'm streaming on both of my Twitter accounts. So, I mean, the internet's you know, a free-for-all, right? Anybody can get on there and do about anything. Cameron, this is my brother Jeremy, the no good for nothing fella in Ohio. He's actually my you can't tell my other brother this, but he's my favorite brother, you know, in Ohio. So upon a thrice time Nixie tale. Next up is a time travel story, Air and Nothingness Press. That's awesome. So, how do you get nominated? Can your friends do it? Same thing I make every Saturday. Try to take over the world. No, wrong thing. Sorry. I start my day with. So in martial arts, you have these things called katas, right? And a really good kata for blacksmithing is to make this simple little trinket that you can throw on your craft table that is a key ring with a leaf as the, you know, the interesting element. And so I start my Saturdays with that kata, and you know, over time I'm improving on it. I'm finding interesting little extra techniques I can make along the way, and basically just sharing the journey with those who have always wondered, can they do blacksmithing? Because clearly this guy who'd never been, you know, formally trained has figured out that there are tons of resources on the web to learn blacksmithing. If you're a reader type, you know, there's books to be had. If you're a visual type, there are tons of videos on YouTube. And so yeah, we start with a leaf key ring, and then we continue on with turning a piece of rebar into something that's going to be Mom's shepherd's hook. So what I'm doing now, I've already made the element that'll turn into the leaf. What I'm doing now is making the stem element, and I want it all to be about the same thickness as I've got in here, all the way back, and long enough to cross the whole face of the anvil, because that turns out to be just about the right size to make the loop for the key ring. And what else? The process of doing that is this edge of my anvil on both sides, from about here to here, is radiused, and so therefore it acts as a fuller. And if you're not familiar with fullers are often struck tools that you use to push material in, you know, apart from each other. So to demonstrate, let me pull out a hammer with a peen on it. If you've ever seen a straight peen or a cross peen hammer, this surface, the peen, is a fuller. It's a, you know, 2D fuller. Whereas if you look at a ball peen, it's a bidirectional fuller. You know, whether it's this way or this way, based on crossed versus straight peen. And then you got the ball peen to push in all directions. and spread material, which is why I'm using this hammer this time, because I'm going to end up using that feature with the rounded side of my rounding hammer later when creating the leaf. And then, since you asked, and it depends on if I get interrupted or something like that, I'll show you so you get a clue as to what I've been working on for Mom's shepherd's hook, if you're not around for the whole session. I've got this 10-foot long piece of rebar, and the first thing I did was create this fishtail. Oh, wait a minute. Let me switch to the camera where you can actually see what I'm talking about. I created this fishtail, which will turn into a scroll. I'll end up scrolling it, and that'll be the so the hook, right, goes up, around, down, and up, and then on the end you'll end up having some sort of finial, you know, you don't have to, but a decorative finial. And in her case, I'm creating a fishtail scroll, which just is, it's a pretty scroll work. And so that's that. The rest of, but what I've been working on lately, and my smithy is very small. It's about 12 foot by 12 foot. So it's not a big area to work in. So I had to bend the, you know, heat it up and bend the rebar to make it so I could actually work on it in here. And then I've been working this length of rebar to just make it not look like rebar. And as a matter of fact, the goal is to make it look kind of organic. In the long run, if I get it to be smooth, then that, you know, we'll see. But the idea is to make all of this look a bit organic, as we are hanging a plant off of it, right? So, yeah, the first part is just to make it stop looking like rebar, you know, with the ribs, and instead make it smooth and organic. So, knocked down the fire camera because my that camera mount just is not, I don't know what to say. You would think somebody as professional as me could do better than use an anvil for a camera mount. We'll work on that for next week. So, let's make the fire hot again. Learning is fun. That's why I enjoy sharing it. So, make those pixies angry. See them all flying around in there. Throw another piece of wet wood in there to start. I'm going to have fun cleaning out this forge, the forge this time, because these pieces of wood have a lot of staples and stuff in it. But I have a can-do attitude. All right. Come back over here, flat side of the hammer. And you can see as I'm doing it, of course, you can see it even better. Put you on the anvil. As I'm doing it, what ends up happening is it just pinches the metal this way. As I hit it with a flat side on this, and I could be even more aggressive and use the rounding side, but then it'd be better to use a cross peen if I were going to try and get really, really aggressive, because the cross peen would push that way from the top, and the anvil would push that way from the bottom, and you would get, you know, even more spreading. I don't want to do that. This material is so small that getting too aggressive would just make it difficult to deal with all this. So we're getting there. We're a little over halfway across the anvil's face now. I think I'm going to lower where this piece sits in the fire a little bit. Gotta love my really fancy forge rake. Just a piece of metal I bent. I'll probably turn this into a prettier rake after a bit, but I think I want to do it with a different type of a form factor of metal, simply because I want to have a reasonably decent handle on it rather than just the flat bar. So you'll see now, as I work with this section, it leaves divots move along as I move across the face of the anvil. And I'm just cleaning those divots up. I like to think of everything I'm doing here with the metal as not too dissimilar to what we would do with Play-Doh. You just have to hit it a little harder. And the fact is that if you were to come over and hang out here for a little bit, I would probably break, before I even had you touching hot metal, you would have to have a couple of sessions where, number one, I can quickly quiz you and ask you what the first rule of blacksmithing is, and you would answer correctly without hesitation. And then after that, or while we were doing that, I would have you working with some polymer clay that I keep in the freezer to keep it the right stiffness. And you would actually use the hammer on that clay to forge, because that clay and this steel move in about the same way. Go. Finish this length there. You need a little bit more. It's a little too black to work, but in the black I can actually strike the, you can see that there are shiny spots and dark spots. Those are basically hammer marks or fuller marks that I would want to push away. And the easiest way to do that is strike it when it's in the black, and it doesn't distribute the material so much as just clean it up. You can see we're almost all the way across. I think we're going to call that all the way across, and then I will basically work on getting it to the point where it will break off. But first, let's make a leaf. Oh, burning wood smells good. Some of it's cedar. My neighbor is a tremendous handyman. So Cameron, if you need a handyman, which I think your dad you said was a pretty decent handyman, so you might not, but if you do, let me know. I'll get you in touch with my neighbor because he's incredible, and we watch out for each other. And he brings me over his scrap cuts, and then I can put them in the fire here, and they become charcoal, and then they become hot enough to melt metal. Well, I don't know if melt. I haven't tried that. It could be trouble. All right, so what we do is we turn it up. You can actually see, I'm going to actually take a second and stop to show you. You can see a ridge because this was done, on a square bar. And what I'm going to do is turn it up so that that ridge is facing up, and you got that diamond shape. And I'm going to push that diamond shape back into itself. So, and then I'm going to spread it in such a way that hopefully it looks leaf-like. So we'll see. Let's get it hot enough again to do that effectively. The biggest thing I'm trying to avoid, because I'm getting down to such, tiny dimensions, is creating stress fractures in the metal. Because that leaf, it's happened to me many a time, will just break right off. So, trying to avoid that. All right, we'll put it facing up. We'll give it a smack. We'll look, smack, look, smack, look, and then we'll start. Let's see. I think I'll give it one more smack. All right, you can see now that it's sort of leaf shaped. And now the next step is to start working it so that it pulls out to be more and more leaf shaped. And then I've got to round up the stem. This tiny material gets hot so nice and fast. Okay, so we come over here, round side. And I continue to work it a little bit so I can create a ridge in the middle. Come over here. I'm not liking the way this one's coming out so much, and I think I see a stress fracture right there because I think I got it too thin. So this one's probably not going to end up in my on my table, but we'll see. I might be able to clean it up and turn it into. Well, let's finish it up with the stem being rounded. See what we get. And all we do for rounding is we take off the corners that were on the created in the forging process. And of course, because it started as a square bar. And then we take off the next set of corners that have been created. And we just keep going all the way around, taking off corners until you can't really tell that there are any facets left. And again, I'm not trying to spread material, and so working it in the black a little bit doesn't hurt. And actually smooth things in the process. As you've never sat through this before, Cameron, you'll be seeing little black flecks coming off of this. That's not from the coal, that's the steel itself. That's basically instant rust. It's called forge scale. Happens in all industrial, working of steel and iron. Let's see if I can work back in there. Actually, that might work out as a leaf after all. I just need to give it a little bit of shape, maybe a little filing at the tip. And that forge scale comes off really hot. But it cools off really fast too. Every now and then a piece of it will pop off and hit me in the hand and remind me that the first rule of blacksmithing is all metal is hot. Even oxidated metal, iron oxide. Actually, I think I'm going to shape the leaf. Let's do that. Let me get out my straight peen here and see if I can throw in some veins. It's one of the few times where I'm trying to put hammer marks in, which will make sense in a minute. Because now you can, you might be able to see. Let's see if I can get it close enough and also focused. Maybe not. Get the just not enough sheet. You can't really see it, but there's a little, what you would think of as veining in the leaf. Now, I think I'm going to go ahead and do just a tiny bit of filing. Clean up the point of this leaf. Just for fun, I'll bring you over to that. Literally bring you over to that. Let's see if I can. Yeah, there we go. Grab a file. Just a little straight file here. All I'm going to do is take off a tiny bit right here. There we go. Didn't take much, but it wasn't something I could do with a hammer. Okay. Go ahead and grab that. Yeah, that looks better. Maybe you can see the veining from there. Maybe. If I catch the light the right way, you might see it there. All right, let's get her back in the fire. And then we'll go ahead and do a little more shaping on the leaf by giving it a look like it's flowing, you know. It's, see if I can find my marks again for the camera. I did put in marks. It's really, you know, having done enough stage work, I realized that was something I should do. But then I promptly lost the marks because what I used was a couple of nails, and the nails quickly rusted over and became hard to see in the dirt. There we go. Since it's a dirt floor, there's the marks. And now I can, there we go. Let's get this. I'm fortunate that Christina likes the smell of a campfire, because I definitely come in smelling like a campfire after these sessions. And if any of my friends in the community that got me started doing this happen to pop on here, I just want to say I definitely had a case of FOMO last week as you guys were out at the Highland Games. But, you know, it's what it is. Miss you guys. All right. This is where I actually need a straight peen to do what I want to do, which is to use my anvil to cause a wave. There we go. In the leaf. Very concerned that that's going to end up breaking off before long, but I'm trying not to stress too much about it. There we go. Now you can see how putting those little bit of bends in there gives it that little bit of life that makes it seem more like a leaf than a piece of metal. So, time to do the last bit, which is to get this cut off here. and then twist around into a ring. So the question that any blacksmith gets asked is, so how many hammers do you own? And I didn't realize it, because I was one of those people asking that question. I didn't realize it until recently, that the answer to that question is not enough. That is always the correct answer to that question. No matter how many hammers you have or how many tongs you have, the answer is not enough. Because each hammer has its own place and purpose. And then, of course, you always have the ones that become your favorite, but, you know, there's the statement of give a man a hammer and the world looks like a nail. But in the case of a blacksmith, that's not quite accurate. Funny, but not accurate. Because we know not all hammers are for nails. Now, I will say that if something's needing to be moved, I feel pretty good about the fact that I've probably got the hammer necessary to move it. I'm going to cool off the leaf so I don't end up bending that area much more. Let's get her back in there again. Believable. Very good. All right, so what we're going to do is get this bit really thin. And then, using tongs, because all metal is hot, we're going to just use it to twist it off. Now that's ready to be turned into a ring. Go ahead and cool off that metal. Push the coals in such a way as to get them ready for a longer piece, and so that they can start catching other coals on fire. We're going to need this, so don't go rocking away with it. Let's see. Let's dial that tweer. And again, for those who've not been on the stream before and don't know what a tweer is, it's a French word. No, really, I'll tell you more. It's spelled T-U-Y-E-R-E, and it is a conduit for air. Now, is that what the French word means? I don't know, but that's what it means in the forge. If you were to look at the standard single or double chambered bellows, which I have to remember to bring my single chambered bellows out here so I can hang it up on the wall and then have it for demo purposes. But you know, you've got the squeeze box kind of bellows. The place that the air comes out is technically a tweer, but typically it's fed into another pipe or conduit that is referred to as the tweer. It's how you get the air from the bellows to the fire. In my case, this is a really neat forge in that it has a dial-a-tweer, which means I can make the area that the air comes out short, long, medium, every step in between. It's in the pipe. As a matter of fact, let me do something real quick here. It's going to be kind of fun to show, but I got to get the hot glove on because that area is warm. This is that tweer, and I'm going to dump this because it could have hot ash. Yep. Dump it on the wet ground underneath. But this is what it looks like. It's a long pipe, but then it has, oops, let's put it into the mode that you can actually see. It's a long pipe that fits into another pipe. And in that pipe, and it is just a pipe, air comes in this side. But then there are channels made along this pipe. A normal tweer basically is just a pipe with a hole on the other end. This one instead is a pipe with many holes along its length. And then the pipe that it fits into has singular holes for each one of these stops. And you can see the way this works is as you dial it, at this setting, let me see if I can find it again. Yeah, at this setting, 1, only this hole is opened up. You turn it to 2, and now you have this hole opens up, and this channel gets restricted so that it pushes the air further back. And then you go to 3, and now you got 2 major holes opened up, 4, etc., all the way down to 10. So I'm going to put it back in and set it to 5. That way I can work the longer piece of rebar with it. It's a really neat design forge, which is why I was willing to give somebody money to make it for me instead of having to make it for myself. But as I tell people, you don't have to have something like this to do this. The easiest forge is, if you've got electricity nearby or you can run an extension cable, is a hairdryer, a pipe, and a pile of dirt that you've put the pipe through on one side, a pile of dirt, create a channel down the middle, put the pipe through the one side of the remaining pile, and now you've got the primitive forge that you can see on Primitive Technologies, the YouTube channel. He, of course, didn't use a hairdryer, but we don't have to do things as primitively as he does, unless you absolutely want to. And then you go grab yourself a bag of lump charcoal, a hardwood charcoal, and you're ready to go. So I highly recommend it for anybody who's ever wondered, can they blacksmith? The answer is yes. But you have to remember the first rule of blacksmithing. Always remember that one. All right, let's get this leaf in here and turn the thing into a loop for a keychain. Or not a keychain, a key ring. Now, mind you, these are the decoration part on the key ring. I still end up using the standard, stainless steel loop that allows you to put the key on and off. The hardest part at this point is not losing the tiny piece in the coals. Sounds like one of my chickens is laying. All right. I think the answer to avoiding that is to just don't let go of it. Get my coals back in there. that I accidentally pulled out when I pulled it out. Pull some coals back so I can have them heating things up. Okay, and we'll come over here to the horn. There we go. And we'll start using the horn to get the shape started. Get the curve going. Now, I am not trying to shape it horn shaped, by the way. The horn, while it does have a roundness to it, that's the point. The horn is meant to help guide where the metal is going to go. You still have to give it some, you know, discernment as you're doing it. Because the horn is not meant to be perfectly round. But there we go. We've got ourselves something that's approaching roundness. I'm going to go ahead and heat it up one more time. Close it up just a little bit more. And then it's done. Oh, we'll brush it off in paste wax. All right, Pixie, stop biting me. All right, we're going to go ahead and close it up just a little more so I can get a nice little overlap there. That's exactly what I'm going for. Okay, there we go. And it broke off. And that's what I was afraid would happen. I got it too thin at that spot. And it also took me longer than I wanted it to. Well, darn. Go ahead and cool it off and throw it into the scrap bucket. Well, a scrap pile, I should say. One day I'll have a bucket. And we'll go ahead and start seeing what we can do with this rebar. Whoo! And there you have it, people. One of the best things about live streams is you start to see not everything goes as planned. Mistakes were made. All right. So let's go to the next thing. And see what kind of progress I can make here. I think the time has come for me to figure out about moving my courtesy bend. Courtesy bend, another term for blacksmiths, is when you have a piece of material that a part of it that you're working on is in the way. So you get it out of the way. That's what I did here. So I think it's time for me to straighten that spot. But I think before I straighten that spot, I'm going to bend. No. I think I'm just going to straighten that spot, and then I'll figure out how to quench it off. The problem is, thinking this through, that needs to be straightened now so that I can actually get in this area where I can't get to so easily right now, and continue working that. The answer might be to not try and to straighten this out, but instead put another bend right here and just bend it back that way. I think that's the answer. So let's get it there. And then it's out of the way and I can continue working. Should be easier to put back then too when the time comes. So get rid of this. Let's see if I can get this where I can get it hot where I want it. All right. Bury it in some coal here. I'm going to grab some coal dust while I'm at it because I need it out of there anyway. And it'd make a pretty fire pixie show in the process. And get everything starting to burn up higher anyway. All right. Get this fire started. Oh, it's already started. Let's get it hotter. If you were doing a lot of bends in the same place, it would weaken the project and cause metal fatigue. But number one, this material isn't easily fatigable. That's one of the reasons rebar is used in the situations it's used. You almost never, you see lots of bent rebar, you almost never see snapped rebar. And it's one of the reasons I selected the rebar. There was two reasons I selected rebar as my source material. That was one of them. The other is simply because it's extremely accessible. Anybody who wants to blacksmith, they can go and get a 10-foot length of rebar for something like 10 bucks. It's not terribly expensive from any of your, big box home improvement stores. So easily accessible, and for my case, while I don't need spring steel, I do need something that will, once shaped, basically maintain that shape. It won't bend. And rebar, it would take quite a bit to make the rebar bend. because I'm going to have it hanging a planter on it that will have various levels of water in it, you know, as rain and so forth. So it's going to have varying weights. But if you were to keep bending the metal, then you could build the stresses in there that would cause the problems. So, good question. But that's exactly what happened with that leaf, is metal fatigue. I just realized you guys probably were having trouble hearing me this whole time because I never moved the mic to where it wasn't muffled by my apron. Anywho, yeah, there was I'd gotten the material thin, so it didn't have much metal around it to prevent the fatigue, and then of course the working it it snapped. When you make these leaves, you really are supposed to work with a bigger material, as I said at the top of the session, but it's not the material I currently have. So using the material I currently have, and I happen to like the result when I get it right. It's a result that's harder to get than with the thicker material, not that it can't be done. Hey, Bruce. There's no sense in being anvil focused at this point, considering it's going to be a while before I do anything on the anvil on this. So let's switch it. And that way I can... Like I said, it's almost like the genie's bottle, or genie's lamp. Got my genies confused, all right? Not the blue one. I mean, not the pink garbed one, but the blue one. I have made a couple of knives, but they're not very exciting to me, Jeremy. And the reason is simple. If you watch, Forged in Fire, or you watch any of the YouTube videos, there's some tremendously beautiful things that are made. But the majority of the effort doesn't seem to be in the forge and at the anvil. There's rough form is what they do in the forge and at the anvil. And then they spend a lot of time at a grinder, at a belt grinder. And I have a 6-inch belt grinder, but they all recommend the 2-inch belt grinder. And you can do it with the 6-inch, but it's not going to be a beautiful result. It's going to be an okay result. It'll make the knife that you need in your shop, but it's not a knife you would want to sell to anybody. And I just don't want to do that. I don't want to spend my time, wearing, a rebreather or, this thing to prevent accidental breathing of dust particles, grinding on a piece of metal. I want to forge things. And so you'll see most of what I end up doing will be forged to finish, or forged to damn near finish, and then I will spend just a little bit of time on a grinder. If I'd actually not broken the leaf off, you would see that the one power tool I keep out here, and we gotta love the fact that we live in the time where power tools don't have to be wired to a power source anymore, is a wire wheel. That's it. That's what I keep out here. I have one other, which is just a portable bandsaw for cutting off lengths of material. And that's it. So, yeah. Welcome to the Smithy. what is it? Weapon. I unfortunately do not read Cyrillic. Um, oh, that's not Cyrillic. Never mind. That's Greek. And that's not weapon. Wow. I'm thankful that somebody dropped in on me. That isn't somebody I know. It's always nice to have new faces in the smithy. If you have any questions, just put it in the chat, and I'll be happy to give you an answer to the best of my ability. The one thing that makes this channel different than most is it's blacksmithing. I am not a blacksmith. I am a novice blacksmith, if you will, and I'm just sharing my enjoyment of learning the craft with people. So I've got a lot of comprehension of what's going on, but that doesn't mean that I have developed the skills yet. That's what I'm doing. But I'm also doing it where I can also show people that you too can do it. All right. This is the one time when it'd be nice to have a torch handy, because I could heat up that one spot real easy, bend it, and then it'd be done. We're getting to the temperature I need there, though. There we go. But the fact is, Jeremy, I do owe a buddy of mine a knife. He gave me his coil springs from his, I think it's 70s. That could be wrong. His Nova that he's been working on for a while. There we go. I don't need to hit it. I just need to put it in a place where I can get the leverage to bend it, which is like that. If I don't pull over my anvil while I'm at it. Having room in this tiny smithy is not easy. All right, there's that. We'll go ahead and wail on it now to get it out of my way. Burn my handle. Nope. That's as good as that's going to get, but it is out of my way, which means I can take it over here to the big old quench bucket, warm up the water with it. Quench it off real good. Use John Switzer's trick to see if it's gonna cause me aggravation. They say, as we say, all metal is hot. You can see the steam coming off that, but I think it's all coming up from up here. He said, do not test with the palm of your hand or your fingers. Instead, use the back of your hand. It's cold. We're good. Good. And so now it's out of my way, and I can get in there and start working some more on these ribs and get rid of the unsightly rebar ribs. And the question becomes, do I have enough space behind my forge to do this? And since I need to work right there at the moment, the answer is I do have enough. But we're getting to the point where I'm going to have to relocate my forge to pull this off. But the good news is now I can actually use the stand I made. All right. All right, there we go. Pixies are nice and angry. We should be able to get things nice and hot. How much time do I have to work with? I wrap up typically at 11 a.m. Pacific here. That way I can do the honeydews. It's my birthday weekend. So one of those honeydews is simply enjoy one of the gifts that I just received. So get to go inside and play a little VR. As soon as I figure out how, I might actually start streaming my VR on Twitch. Charcoal is an interesting one to work with because it's both the fuel source, but it's also an insulator. Wood's a great insulator, right? Because of all the air pockets that are trapped inside the wood. And as a result, you put fresh charcoal on top of hot charcoal and throw some air through it. All that heat builds up underneath, cooks the charcoal above, of course, getting it ready to be the charcoal that falls down below, but also bounces the heat back down into the material. So oftentimes people talk about it, especially when it comes to forge welding. Roy of Christ-centered Ironworks fame on YouTube, he'll talk about if you can see the metal, that metal can see the air. If the metal can see the air, it's already cooling off. So, oh, thanks, Cameron. So I was able to see the metal, so I realized, though it's coming close to me to wrap up time, I'm never going to make any progress with this metal if I don't cover it up. Let's see what our, yeah, that's good temperature. Good, good, good. Material is ready to start moving. Let's see if I can get it out of there and not struggle getting it over to where I need it, which I'm going to struggle because it's too freaking long. And this is where it's like, oh, maybe it's time for another courtesy bend. All right. Good, good, good. Now, real exciting forging here. I was mentioning it earlier. All I'm doing is taking the ribs that make it very obviously rebar and pushing it back into the metal so that it doesn't look so much like rebar. And if you notice, I only have to work this metal around 180 degrees of it, not 360. And that's because people don't realize it, how much your anvil is part of the a vital part of the tooling. And you can still see just hints of the ribbing, but it's been forged in now. Do it again. There's a little bit up here I need to clean up, so I'll put it a little less deep in the forge. Get that area hot and do that cleanup. But yeah, basically, you might have noticed I only had to work 180 degrees around, and yet the ribbing was gone on 360 around the whole thing. And that's because every time you strike with the hammer, if you've got a good anvil, the anvil strikes back. It basically pushes back at the metal on the other 180 degrees. So it is not vital to get started to have a good anvil, but that's why people spend good money on a good anvil. It is a part of the tooling that is not really thought too much about. You just know you have to have an anvil, but that's why the quality of an anvil makes a difference. Can you get started with one of the cheap ones at Harbor Freight or an Acatio from Amazon even? Yes, you absolutely can. And that's where Roy has given away Acacios. Last year was the year of the anvil, and he gave away a bunch of Acacios. But it's why it's one of the first tools after a hammer and tongs that a blacksmith starts saving for, is a good anvil. This year, you should go check out Roy's channel. I'll mention it again. Christ-Centered Ironworks. He's a good smith, really good smith, and he really gives to the community quite a bit. And one of the ways he's given to the community, blacksmithing community this year, is he wants to help new blacksmiths just like I do. But his way of doing it is, of course, he's an established blacksmith and therefore an excellent teacher. And he's also giving away, various things. This year is the year of the forge. He's actually giving away a single burner propane forge. Mr. Volcano, I think it is. And yeah, go watch his live streams and, enter to win by being there at the live stream. And good luck to you on that. Bruce, come on in here, buddy. It's warmer in here. Come on. Come on. Come hang out in here. It's warmer. Good boy. Over here. Good boy. You're a good boy. I'm lucky I haven't knocked over my camera stand. All right, let's do a little more cleanup here on this piece. Yep, that's the end of my one Ryobi battery. It's also a hint that it's about time for the stream to end because that thing lasts about the length of one live stream. Fortunately, this is also about the time where the sun gets up just high enough where I'm not shrouded in darkness. Or I should say the dim light of the Pacific Northwest. There's a bunch right there I need to do. This is looking good. End is now straightened out where I need it to be. All right, let's see if I can get it back in the fire, get that spot going. I'm going to take a little precaution, anti-fire precaution here, and unplug my GoPro's power source. It's got a battery, so it should still keep going. But I need to get a longer cable for my GoPro, power cable that is. Go ahead and move this back here. Nope, needs to come up higher, like that. I'm pretty proud of this. It doesn't look like much, but I made it here in my Smithy. And with the help of my son, I designed it all on a CAD program and then made the curly feet that it stands on. I want to put smaller stuff in there so it burns down fast. There we go. And then my son helped me weld it together. Felt that pop up my face. Let's see how much my beard is still there when I go look at it later. That's warm. Not warm enough to burn me, but that spot was warm. So now I know. Let me take a precaution there. Yeah. I think I'm just going to have to move my camera here. Put it over here. It's not as good a view, but at least I won't trip over it. Get over here. Yeah, that heat was traveling. There we go. You're not seeing that so well over there, but that was fun to see. Yeah, thanks. Yep, again, wrong one. This one. You can see the smoke coming off where that where that heat traveled, which makes sense. This was pretty close to the area I was forging before. One of the benefits of working in a dirt floor smithy is getting the floor wet's not going to be a big deal. There we go. Good enough. See if I can knock the camera with my big tuchus. I did not. Good. Well, the camera's going to stay there for the moment. I wish I could figure out how to make it zoom. It's something I'm going to have to look into. See if there's a way to make the studio allow me to zoom the cameras in. Still learning the ropes on OBS Studio. Yeah, now it's safe for the touch right there. Nice hot fire, but I don't think it's reaching my metal. Yeah, it is. All right. Move this out of my way so I'm not tripping on it. Just the dust was getting in the way, so I couldn't see if it was reaching my metal. And I didn't finish with the do the thing I said I was going to do. Fortunately, the material, and I didn't get it hot where I wanted it to either. But there are some ribs right there, so. That explains why it was so warm way up here. I was doing the wrong spot. Let's bring her back down here. Look at it. There's a spot there I can do. I will say there's one of two outcomes of me doing this big project like this in such a small space. Either I'm going to become so, have figured it out well enough that it will not be a bother at all to do more big projects, or I will not want to do another big project like this for a while. So, we'll see. But let's take a look. Let's come down into the black. It's easier to see ridges and the such when it's in the black. Let's grab this. So the spot I want to get hot is there, because I definitely see ribs sticking out there. I'm going to cool this off if I can, so that I don't accidentally melt something or burn something. That's a part of my smithy or part of my equipment. There. Can I get it in the right place for that to be where I need it to be? Come back over here now. Like that. Bunch more quick burning stuff on top to be insulator and fuel. Quick burning because I only got about 15 more minutes here, 10 maybe. There it goes. Put a lot of charcoal dust in there when I threw that in, so that's where the fire pixies are popping out from. And Jeremy, if you're still there, instead of being, there is a difference between blacksmithing and bladesmithing. You basically heard me describe it. Bladesmithing is basically rough form blacksmithing, and then blacksmithing is forge to finish typically. You'll have some light file work typically, or a little bit of grinding, not typically too much, polishing, You'll have, you know, with artistic blacksmithing, you've got forging, then you've got bending, and that's what I want to do, is more of the artistic blacksmithing, which is why this project is what I want to do. I just have to, you know, probably rethink where I've got things positioned in here so that I can better deal with, you know, hood on versus hood off, angles for being able to move things around, but also be able to get good camera angles for you guys, because, you know, I really do enjoy sharing. For me, life is something to share. It is not a solo activity. It's just, that's me. That is why I firmly believe in accepting people, you know, where they're at, taking people, you know, loving everybody if I can, you know. There's precious few people out there that I think would be hard for me to love. And that's just simply because they've been vile human beings. They've done horrible things to other human beings. Or they've stood and witnessed horrible things without stepping in to stop it. Got to stop treating people like they're not people, like they're the opponent. We're all people. We're all living here, trying to make our way in the world the best we can. So, you know, my way in doing that is sharing my life with people. Sharing what I get excited about with people. My job is literally sharing my excitement for the ability to write software with the tooling I have to work with, because I think that tooling is awesome. So what I'm doing here is basically the same thing, except instead of writing software, it's discovering that my friends that my wife introduced me to have this really amazing hobby that just about anybody can do. And when I say just about anybody, I mean even if you're differently abled, you can do this. I've got one blacksmith I follow, GS Tongs. I don't know that he's differently abled, not at all. Not saying that at all. He might be. I just don't know. But what I am saying is, he demonstrates that if you are differently abled, such that you can't stand to do the craft, don't stand to do the craft. He sits the whole time he does the craft. So, you know, there's that. I think about the only, and I'm going to have to give it some thought, figure out if there's a way to do it, but the only impediment to blacksmithing is I do think you have to be able to see what it is what you're hitting. So you might not be able to do it if you're blind. But I would love to find a blind blacksmith out there to prove me otherwise. That would be a hell of a story, a hell of a thing to learn, a hell of a thing to share. I think it would be great. You got to accept people where they're at. Help them enjoy life by not depriving them of it in the way they want to live it. If it's not affecting you, don't tell them how to live their lives. I think I'll get one more pass and then I basically have to stop for the day. I think my honeydew today is go get a heater working and clean a couple of bathrooms. And those are honeydews I gave myself, so there. There we go. The spice, I mean, the air must flow. You make me smile, Cameron. I love you. One of the best people in my lives. Can't wait till this whole pandemonium's over. Makes me want to bounce with it. It's got a rhythm. Need some music, but I don't need my channel shut down, so no music. Maybe I need to start learning some songs to sing along, though. It's got a rhythm that I could probably do some chanties with. All right. Let's forge in a few more ribs and then call it a weekend. Do. All right, what do we got? We've got this side looking like there's a couple there to knock down, and then come up a little further. And then just a little bit more here because I can. Give it heck. Oh, there's some ribs. I can see them now. They're starting to cool down. Get it. That's funny. Alex Steele is one I follow. Obviously, there's if it wasn't obvious from the beginning when I talked about his doing his leaf key rings, and I watch him forge heavy, and he puts a whole body effort into it. He's not just swinging the hammer, he's moving his whole body into the hole. And it's like, well, I'm not getting a power hammer anytime soon, so I guess I need to do more of that. All right. That's some good progress, considering I basically bent 2 feet out of the way, and that was up into here. So good progress. Was able to work some area that was getting blocked by that before. And now I can let it just rest in the forge, mainly so that it's out of the way of anything that can get burnt. A bunch of coals in there. I hate to waste them, but it is time to call it done. I think what I'll do is something crazy and actually try to put those coals out. Probably not going to work. Yeah, I mean, You need to, if you know of some forging shanties, that would be awesome, but I think it's going to be more like sea shanties. Oh yeah, that's how I get splashed by very hot embers. Nothing that burnt me though. Let's see. Let's move this out of the way so it's not getting dripped on. That may or may not have been a good idea, because I now have water coming out of my blower, which I don't know how water got up into the blower when it should have gone down into the tube. Okay, so I'm gonna grab this. There's got to be something going on in there that's going to cause me all sorts of grief as soon as I pull this. All right, wash that out. Good. I'll leave that down there. And now let's now I can go ahead and continue what I was doing. Which is just I doubt that I'll be able to reuse this charcoal, not because I got it wet. That doesn't hurt charcoal in the least bit, but simply because I really doubt I will have put out the fire. But that's a lot of charcoal just sitting in there that I hate to see just get burnt up if I can actually put it to use next time. And I've already done this once before. The cleanup is minimal. And now that I have pulled that out, now I know my lesson, learned my lesson here. And the lesson is, pull the tweer before you pour water on, so that the water can run out the downside end instead of filling up and backing up. All right. If that's going to work, the work is done. Folks, thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate it. As I said, and as was reiterated, life is something to share, and that's what I'm trying to do here. And yes, better forging through trial and error. That is, I mean, come on. It doesn't get any better than that. Absolutely. And Cameron, if you want to share the link to other people, please do. I would love to have more folks just jumping on here. Anybody else out there, just share it with folks. You can put a like on it, of course, because that might feed the algorithm. And who knows, maybe it'll start popping up in other people who like to watch blacksmiths. And, you know, I know that many of the folks that watch blacksmiths are probably other blacksmiths. But I also know that many of the folks that watch blacksmiths just like watching the art happen and always wonder if they could ever do it. And I'm here to tell you that pretty much anybody can. And that's what the channel's about, is to share my journey in making it happen. So, as I always say, love and light. Catch you next time.